My next guest is a modern Renaissance man, actor, director, TV host. Coming up, we'll hear a little bit about his new project. All right, I'm going to welcome my next guest, Sean Stone. He is an actor, director, producer, screenwriter, TV host for Buzzsaw and Watching the Hawks. Sean, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited. So I have been following you on social media and elsewhere on your talk shows, RT specifically and Gaia. And you have, like I said before, an insatiable curiosity, and you have delved into so many areas, from history to the metaphysical to paranormal aspects in life. You just have so many fingers in different areas. I love it. So let's start with kind of your journey from Hollywood to Princeton, and then kind of take me from there into some of your projects now.
Well, that's a long story. I mean, just uh, just to get into the backstory alone is like a whole episode on its own,
It's
I'm
so
sure.
true.
But what is it like? I guess
So
specifically, what are you
specifically,
thinking?
being that the
You
show,
guide me.
yeah, exactly. Being that the show's called Guided, were you feeling like you were on a path and had this trajectory, and then all of a sudden maybe you felt guided to go a different way, maybe even through guides or through spirit, and then it was just like one day you woke up and you thought, you know what? No, I'm going to take this direction instead.
Yeah, I suppose I've I've been tuned in. I would say my life since high school, the end of high school, I've been pretty much under that feeling of being guided and sort of destined on the paths that I choose, and the feeling that things open doors for you, and you can feel like you're in a room with four walls and no doors, and all of a sudden a window or a portal opens and you go through that. That's certainly been a leading factor in how I've made decisions throughout my life. So if I think at maybe the end of college, or during college, I should say, I went to work on Alexander, my dad's film, and I was shooting behind the scenes, doing the documentaries. And if I think back now, I guess I could have maybe pursued more of a Hollywood writing, directing career at that point, but I didn't feel that that was my calling at the time. I felt I needed to go back to college, finish my education, and just sort of carve my own way through what are considered many, like, we have all these systems that exist in the world, systems of power. You even talk about like Hollywood as though it's sort of like a system, or Washington is a system. And I've never really seen these things as megalithic structures. I've seen it more like, well, where do I fit in between these power structures as an individual, as a sovereign being that's basically extrapolating his soul along the journey, and hopefully in the process of finding my voice and my visions, being able to express that certain people can sort of pick up and recognize the frequency and resonate with it, and hopefully the journey is interesting to others as it is to me. So that's sort of a sense of how I got where I am. I mean, there was no like aha moment of waking up one day and just saying, oh, this is the epiphany. It's more like, again, like you come to places in your life where you kind of feel like, okay, I don't know which way to go. I don't know what to do next. You quit your job, or I guess in my case, it's like, yeah, I've quit jobs, or I've like left things, you finished college, or maybe came to a place of not knowing what I was going to do next, finished a film and didn't know what I was going to do next. And all of a sudden opportunities do arise, present themselves to you when you let go of your expectation about where you need to be, and just say, okay, I've put myself on a path. I've completed what I set out to make or do, and now I'm open. And it's very scary, but next thing you know, offers do inevitably come, and then you got to just tune into your soul and do your meditations, or in my case, I would say meditation. Some people would say they're whatever it is, trance, spiritual retreat, prayer, and just say, okay, what do I want to do next? And then you go do that thing, and next thing you know, you're on another path. So it is always about being guided, but it's mostly trusting to let go of the situation you're in that you can move forward.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I think it's key what you said to kind of surrender that control, because when you're at that crossroads and you might be having that dark soul of the night even for some people, and you're not sure what to do, just having that surrender moment and being still and quiet so you can meditate or pray, whatever your process is, to feel like you can receive those answers is key. For you, it sounds like when you meditate, things will come to you, and then people or situations present themselves. Is there anything in particular that comes to mind as far as somebody presenting an opportunity for you after you've surrendered?
I think the main point I guess I would want to make and to express is that as we go on this journey, I know in my case, it's a journey to remember who I am. I think each of us actually has that journey of remembrance. The heart is a major guide in that process. People always say, follow your heart, and they say, trust your heart. And it's become sort of a catchphrase without actually discerning what that means. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of power within the heart chakra. I mean, people know about the various chakras now. They know a little bit more of that, sense from the East of this energy body, this, that courses beyond us, beyond our physical flesh. There's an energy body that surrounds us and intermingles with us, our flesh. And that energy body has 7 major gateways, chakras. The heart chakra is tremendously powerful. And so the more that we can get in touch with that through actively breathing into it, through actively doing things to surrender, to submit, to pray, to maybe travel. I mean, I think there are activation points on the planet. The pyramids certainly come to mind, but we know there are many sacred sites all over. And when you go to those activation points, it does remind you, not just your memory, but your physical, emotional energy body does get energy from these places. And next thing you know, you open pathways and you open, basically connections from your chakras to your soul, to your past lives. And I think this is a very important point to be made, is that actively seek out your heart, actively work at, doing the work in letting go of physical expectations and demands upon the universe, and maybe mental patterns and behaviors that you've learned since being born into this matrix, and just get more in tune with who you are as a person, what really you enjoy, and go back into your child sense of play. And I think play is sort of underrated, but really like the idea of just looking at a tree and being able to climb a tree and be amazed at what a tree is and how many hundreds or thousands of years it may have stood there, or at least been in the process of growing, right? The sun, the earth, the sky, the winds, the ocean, all these things are so majestic and so powerful. And it takes you back to like when you were a child and you looked at the world and you had the sense of play and fun and appreciation, admiration, curiosity. And if you can be more in touch with that heart, that child heart, like, they say in the gospel, you'll become like little children. Well, if you can get into that child's heart, I think that you find a lot more of your soul's intention comes to you, essentially. The people that are resonating with you, the situations, the circumstances, the opportunities that resonate with you will naturally arise.
Absolutely. There was one point in time, I want to say it was like a couple years ago, I think you posted something on social media, and I thought, where is he? Is he like in Utah? And I think you then posted something like Sedona, and I had always wanted to go to Sedona, and it was thanks to you, your influence, that I actually took my first trip to Sedona about a year ago or so, and I felt, like you had said, there are certain places in the world that make you just feel a certain way. And Sedona just felt like home to me. And all those energetic ley lines, I was like loving it. And literally now, every time I go to Sedona, I cry every time I leave because it feels that way.
Mm,
And so there are those chakras in the earth, like you said, that just have those connections with our own chakras as well. And I think it's so beautiful. And like you said, when you go and play and you release just those feelings that you have inside and you connect with your heart, those people and places do present themselves. I think that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing
hmm
that. So
Yeah, of course. Of
as
course.
you have taken this journey and you've been guided, have you noticed any of your spiritual gifts that have been activated?
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's a subjective thing. It's hard to explain to people unless they've experienced it. I mean, when I was younger, let's say I heard stories. People would tell me everything from seeing UFOs to lights in the sky, or out of body experiences, or astral travel. I mean, there's so many experiences and beyond. I mean, sightings, people have seen things, creatures, fairies, and a lot of these things I was more open-minded to, but I'm sure people of a skeptical nature would just laugh and say, well, you must be hallucinating, you must be crazy or something, you belong in a mental hospital. But these things all exist. They are all very real. And what's interesting to me, I see things more from like, I don't see things in the physical world, not necessarily like a seer in that sense. I've never seen ghosts or fairies and spirits in the physical world, but certainly I can intuit and sense things more in my inner space, inner landscape. So the energetic body is very powerful, as I was talking about before, the etheric body that surrounds us and connects us to our soul. It's sort of when you get in touch with that and you close your eyes and basically do visualization, or just letting your mind, your third eye, in a sense, reflect back to you on the screen of your mind here. Um, we do have ability to see things and feel, like, basically sense what's happening to us, or what's happening on a multidimensional plane, because a lot of what appears to be worldly events are very much interdimensional events, but we can't see it from that perspective beyond the 3D physical realm, right? We see it only from the perspective of Earth, but we don't see that actually from a multidimensional perspective, there's all kinds of aliens, or entities that are ancient, archonic, godlike entities that we've called gods throughout time, that are actually affecting and influencing our being here. And they don't they manifest maybe like through physical events that we think are mundane, but if you can see into the other dimensions, you start to realize, wow, there's a huge impetus behind this. And we are so guided by by forces and events that I think it'd be very difficult to describe verbally. But obviously there's a lot of channels and people out there that are doing this work, trying to make sense of the psychic landscape that's basically we're experiencing, but without the sight, without most people having the sight to see what's really happening.
You sound very clairsentient to me, like just having that inner knowing.
hmm
Yeah. So, and I also listened to one of your interviews with Carrie Cassidy, and you mentioned there that you feel there are a lot of beings that follow us around, both good and evil, possibly. And is there a certain way that you protect yourself or ground?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in fact, it's like, I think the more you realize in the course of your life that good and evil are sort of, on a grand scale, there's truth to it, but there's also not, because there is a totality. There's a yin yang. I think the yin yang is probably the best representation of what it really is. And
Right.
that's to say that there's like light and dark, and basically just different intentions. And one intention basically is that of the ego and the individual, that can, in its most base form, ultimately has to devour everything around it because essentially it's just so wounded and in pain that it doesn't know how to heal itself and how to basically deepen its emotional understanding. So it operates from just a pure predatory perspective. And then you have the great good, which is, in its purest form, basically is pure giving and love and has, basically no separation. And somewhere in between is man, which is to say I think most beings are like that. They're somewhere in between where they have some balance between service to self and service to others. And, anyone who says that they're pure service to others is, unless they're walking on water and shining pure light, they're probably lying to themselves, or to you, just intentionally to manipulate you. So there's some balance of service to self and service to others. And yes, these beings, again, like they populate the world around us. There's so many dimensions that we can't even fathom, I don't think, where it begins or ends. But all we have to recognize is in ourself, what do we need in our journey? Like, what is the protection, as you talk about? And I think there are many different forms of visualization when it comes to it. Mm-hmm. It's honestly like I don't have I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh yeah, just visualize the violet flame. That certainly can be effective. Visualizing the violet flame around yourself, I think, has a power. Or like certain reflect idea of like visualizing mirrors around yourself that reflect back any like evil eye or sense of jealousy that's being cast upon you. Prayers certainly can be very effective. But I'm not necessarily like an expert on psychic protection to tell others. I think I've been under the influence of spells and the eyes of jealousy and others, and it just really, like I said, going back to your heart space is the quickest protection of all, because when you're in your heart space, you don't give as much energy to things that are negative or not in your best interest. You tend to sort of weed out those that don't resonate you in heart space. So that's probably the quickest form across the board of finding your peace and your security and your safety, is to just be in your own heart space and then allow those beings that nourish you and support you and love you into your realm, and then just make sure you protect and guard yourself from those that you recognize, they don't feel quite right, or their interests don't mesh with mine.
Right. When you have felt you were under spells, what were some signs? Just that negative energy, or and how did you circumvent those to be perpetuated in the future?
No, I mean, I know I've been under spells because we've all been under spells. It's like, you have sexual relations with people and they leave attachments to you. Yeah. Entities that, in the course of that sexual relation that is some kind of, that does have some kind of drain on your energy, let's say. You can see it sometimes in photos of yourself and you realize, I don't quite look as vibrant as I could, or I'm not, I don't really feel like myself. I mean, these are little things that you pick up on. And the hard thing is a lot of people don't really know how they're supposed to feel. Like they don't realize, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in a place of happiness and love and peace. And that's where I'm supposed to be, because we've been put into a society that indoctrinates you basically that, yeah, you can pursue happiness, but in the process, you should be a debt slave and basically just, focus all your energy on money and making a living. And then, basically whatever programming they want to put out through the media, television, you name it, whatever messaging that they're sending you, it's like, it's all these lifestyles essentially of how you're supposed to live. And in the process, you never really detach and say, wait a minute, am I really happy? And most of the time, I think people would say no. So what is the point? Oh, we're supposed to one day be happy, or is it just meant to be like, hey, take a pill and feel better? But I think that's the essential question that you have to ask yourself is, am I happy? Am I around people that bring me joy? Am I doing things that bring me joy, that feel healthy? I mean, of course, we all work and do things that are trying and taxing. But if you're not finding every day those things that bring you joy and peace and sort of the self-care, the taking care of yourself, looking after yourself, making sure that you have your your quiet time, your introspective time, then then you're much more susceptible to attack and to sort of being out of your vibration.
I think that's a great thing to bring up, though. I don't think people realize, in their sexual relations even, that if, people haven't cleared their own baggage or the other person hasn't, when you merge two people together, that you're right, attachments can cling on and they are actually under spells when stuff like that comes up. So, or even when you enter a room and the energy isn't right, then there can be attachments. So
Hmm.
you bring up some really, really good points. And I just feel like if people aren't in their heart space, like you say, they don't realize they may even have attachments, or they don't realize that they're unhappy. Maybe even looking back in retrospect, if they look at pictures, they might say, oh, wow, I really didn't look happy. So those are great points, Sean. I appreciate that. As far as some of the projects that you've worked on, you had a documentary that you worked on. I know you are a history buff, so one of those was A Century of War, is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. You worked on that. That was one of your projects in school as well, is that correct?
Well, it evolved from my desire to make it when I was in college. And I mean, I basically did it 10 years later.
Okay.
But when I was in college, that was I was at school at Princeton and going back and forth from Jersey to New York on the train. And I was sort of fascinated by the decay of the industrial, what became the Rust Belt, right? It used to be an industrial hub, especially in Jersey and New York. And it became the Rust Belt. And so I was really interested to see that. What became the inner cities basically were former industrial zones, and with people making blue collar wages. And then I would, read the newspapers that time, and it was pre-crash, and it was always about how the basically like the outsourcing of jobs was all like part of the, healthy trend of making money for the big corporations, and meanwhile, all the jobs that were lost in the blue collar sector were being replaced by service sector jobs. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense, because most of the blue collar jobs, and I worked a blue collar job after college. I did a construction job. You're making in New York, you're making $30 an hour. And I'm like, well, so you're basically taking someone from $30 an hour to less than $10 an hour if they're making minimum wage in the service economy. Let's say it is $10. I mean, that's basically reducing their wages by 2/3.
Right.
So how is that healthy for the economy to take someone from making $30 to making $10 an hour? That's not healthy for the economy at all. And that's where they trick you, because essentially they're saying, well, as long as the corporations are making profits and Wall Street's doing well, the overall economy is healthy. But from the perspective of shrinking middle class and people that are living more and more on debt, right? It's like the irony is, you don't need money to have a credit card.
Right.
As long as you're making minimum payments, right? It's like you don't need money, you just need a credit card.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if your wages are decreasing. And that's the mentality we've been in for like the last 30 plus years, since the 70s. So it just struck me that it's time to do a documentary about this. And that's really what was the focus of Century of War, was what happens to the American century and the promise of rising wages, growing middle class, the notion that, industry and blue collar work were sort of the staple of the American dream. It just seemed like it's been flushed down the toilet. And, certain people have obviously made off very well, but we know we're in a world where, half a dozen people have as much money as half the planet. So there's something wrong here.
Yeah. And there has been a lot of chatter about a global financial reset. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. I'm waiting for it.
I know. Yeah, and like all these TDAs that they're talking about, and getting us out of debt. And I mean, is that talk? Is it real? What's your opinion? Do you feel like it's real?
It better be real. It better be. Look, it's kind of like this whole thing with Trump and the sealed indictments.
Right.
I mean, these things are happening, but when? That's the great question of all, isn't it? The clock is the master, and we all serve. No one knows exactly when. Um, but we have to believe that there is, how do you say, things are coming. The consciousness is shifting. That's regardless of what people do. The consciousness is shifting. Now, how much pain is involved, how much medicine in a sense is involved for the transformation, I think that's just how quickly people wake up.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
more rapidly people wake up and just start to do the work and to recognize the spiritual nature of reality, the better off they're going to be. The more they
Yes.
get just stuck in these endless cycles of materialism, they'll be sort of sloshed off, I think. Um, I hate to say it, I'm like, I guess you could say like I believe in a spiritual hierarchy in that sense. I do believe that there are those that are masters, that are more enlightened beings that have come here to really guide and lead the way. And there are a lot of tricksters that have come here basically, or, manipulators that have been here to deceive people. And it's up to people to decide what they want to follow. They want to follow the path of their heart and their dreams and their imagination, or do they want to follow the path of reality, which frankly is a controlled matrix. It's been controlled since you were born. The whole notion of belief systems and structures and societies. I mean, these things are all manufactured. And the fact people say this is reality, it's just like, no, it's the reality you've chosen to believe in. And I'm putting out a documentary next week for RT called MetaHuman, and we're getting into a lot of these issues. That reality is what you make. It's how you conceive of the world, how you interact with your own consciousness, and the reality we're entering in the next in 100 years is going to look nothing like this reality. But ultimately, it's up to us to decide how much we're going to incorporate the machines into our being, right? How much we're going to allow the artificial augmented intelligence to determine our lives and run our lives. And for how much of it will be for the positive, I think depends on who programs it. If you have enlightened beings programming intelligence, you end up with a structure that serves the greater good and this serves humanity. If you end up with beings that are basically hell-bent on greed and limited resource wars, then you'll end up with an army of artificially intelligent drones, killer drones that are basically designed to molest and terrorize, then harass and depopulate. So it's up to us to say, which path are we on? Are we taking the path of light and love and rising consciousness, or are we going to go down like Atlantis?
Right.
I don't have a problem with, I don't have a problem with what's coming because I know that it's ultimately going to be for the best. I am more of the mind that the traumatic events have unfortunately created shockwaves across consciousness through many lifetimes. So the problem that we face is that if another event is conjured to really crash the society and destroy people en masse, the way Atlantis fell or the way that Mars was depopulated, those events created trauma. Even though the people died, they carried the path to death into the fallen.
Right.
The transition, I hope, will be much smoother, much less traumatic, so that those who do leave in this time period won't go with the shock that will then trigger their future lives to be stuck in repeating the trauma. This is what we've seen throughout human history, is that you have the trauma of wars and bloodletting and sacrifices that ultimately traps the soul into patterns and expectations that trauma is the natural order, basically. So the traumatized soul then imparts trauma on the next generation, basically. It traumatizes the next generation the same way that, sort of hazing goes in college or in military orders. It's like, well, I was traumatized, so this is how things are done. I got raped, so I have to rape you. That mentality is happened on a soul level in human history. And it's time that we let go of that pain. We let go of that trauma. We resolve it, each of us internally, and again, come more into the heart space and recognize that if we come in and operate from a heart space, miracles are born. We recreate our society. We come to a new reality where there's only abundance and plenty, because really we're in an infinite universe. So it's all available to us. It's just that we haven't embraced and accepted that concept yet.
Yeah, I love that. More people need to have more 5D faith.
More
And
what?
5D faith is what I call it.
5D.
5D faith. So,
Yeah.
I think also, like you said, how we create our own reality as well. I feel like, for those who can read the Akashic records, it's almost like there's so many potentialities and so many probabilities that could be in the future. It's really, if you take care of your own baggage and your own stuff, and you can project that light and be in your heart space, you can really have a beautiful traumatic, a beautiful world is what we can have, like you're saying. But I think if we concentrate on something that's, traumatizing, and that singular event like you're talking about, it's not going to go down very pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing. And I mean, the projects that you're working on are life-changing and impactful to this world. And so the documentary that you're working on now is coming out when? Next week?
MetaHuman is coming out right around the new year on RT.
Oh, that's so exciting. So can anybody just download it
It'll
or
be on
watch it?
RT.
Oh, just on RT. Okay.
Yeah, RT. So it should be available on the RT website and should be on YouTube as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay. That's going to be exciting. So by the time this is published, people are going to be able to go and see that. That's really exciting. So with your adventures, I know you went to Egypt, you've been like all over the world. Even back in, was it 2013 when you had the opportunity to speak in Tehran and kind of be like an ambassador and kind of
Yeah, a
bring
little
things
bit. Yeah,
together? That
it was
was
2011,
beautiful.
2012, actually. Yeah.
Okay, okay. What was that like to know that you were representing the United States in a way, in a big way?
You know what? It was an interesting time period because I felt like, in the sense, it helped catalyze some of those, um, negotiations that followed when Kerry went over there and we did the nuclear deal. Um, Part of me also feels that overall I'm very disappointed with the Iranian government. They have not responded to their people. They have not. The simple step that Iran has to make is to separate the theology side, the mullahs, separate them from the government. Once that step is made, Iran will be fine because it's a very westernized society, a very ancient civilization. They just like the Chinese have their issues. Iran's issue right now is that the mullahs are controlling the government, and they need to be stepped away from that position of power. And then I think at that point we'll see a lot more positive steps being taken. What I did at the time was basically to help diffuse. I felt was to help diffuse a conflict. At this point, I don't think it'll be a direct war, but I think Iran will collapse internally from that fact until the mullahs step aside and really respond to the will of the people. It's going to collapse. I don't see any other way for it.
That's a huge mantle that you carry, to be able to have that access and that beautiful, loving power to help with those negotiations. Are you still in contact with people there and have a sway?
No, I mean, I don't feel that I have a sway. I just feel that, again, this is always by consciousness. When your consciousness is brought into certain circumstances and situations, we shift energy, we shift based on our perspective. You want to change reality, change perspective. So it's not to say that I have any particular sway, but I'm just speaking from my consciousness.
You have said before, though, that in different interviews that we've contracted certain things to happen with various people and various situations, and it seems though that you've contracted with many people to help not only our government but people around the world in beautiful ways. And so I think it's so neat how your life is unfolding.
Maybe soul level. Again, because it's a very interesting thing. Absolutely, the contracts that take place are usually soul contracts.
Yes.
They're energetic, and that's why sometimes it's interesting to watch synchronicities, and you realize the relationship between things and people that don't even necessarily know that they're doing things. So the
Right.
key is to become more and more conscious of what we are doing, of our consciousness, of our souls, because our souls are so much bigger than we are. And the soul family and the soul group and the people that are connected to us. And it's a beautiful thing actually coming together with others from your soul group through the course of your life and finding them, because there are millions actually that are, or there could be potentially millions from your soul family and soul group that are here. And a lot of them may not be awake yet, but hopefully doing the work of spreading the light and spreading the message and raising your vibration helps them activate and ultimately come together, because that, again, a few soul groups activated on this planet would be enough to change the whole situation, because it's big enough.
Absolutely.
If you're talking about a few million people, if in the right positions, government, business, finance, arts, health, literally could change the world. You don't need everyone on the planet to be aware. You need 10% of vanguard, in a sense, of leadership, and the whole planet could be transformed.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely. It's so fun meeting people in your soul families. And it's like that recognition that you feel when you meet them, when you look into their eyes, or you just have that feeling like, where do I know you? How do I know you? Why do I feel like I know you? It's so fun interacting with those people and having those exchanges. And like you said,
Hmm.
activating each other. And it's like, it reminds me, I don't know if you've seen this show, but on Netflix, it's called Sense8, and it's like soul
Yeah,
clusters.
exactly. Yeah,
So interesting.
it's good. The Wachowskis certainly seem tapped in between the Matrix and Jupiter Ascending and Cloud Atlas and Sense8. A
Yes,
lot of truth.
I love it. Well,
Hmm.
I am so happy that we had this exchange and this dialogue, and I hope to in the future have more with you. And after I see the documentary that comes, maybe we can have a discussion about that too. But it has been such a
Cool.
beautiful time with you, and thank you so much for being on Guided and sharing all of these lovely thoughts with us.
It's my pleasure, Jody. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful rest of your day and your week. And although this is going to be published in January, it's December here in the East Bay of San Francisco, and we want to wish you an early birthday.
Ah, really appreciate that.
You bet. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Jody.